Hi, you're listening to The Dive, brought to you by Living Word Press, starting right now. Hi, welcome back to The Dive. I'm here with Dr. Josh Wallman, Dr. Gary Yates. It's good to have you guys as always. This week, the question is, how tall was the Tower of Babel? What was the Tower of Babel? What was the significance? Dad, I'll throw it to you this week.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you say that because when I was a kid and read this story or heard it in Sunday school, I always assumed that it was a skyscraper, and when they got to the 200th floor, they got a little too close to the sun or something like that, and God said that's enough.
It's the biblical Icarus. Got too close to God.
Yeah, it violated the heavenly building code and that sort of thing.
Right.
But the reality is that what is happening in the story of Babel is another example of human rebellion against God. And from the fall in Genesis chapter 3, beginning with Adam wanting to be like God, we have these examples of people wanting to be like God. So Cain wants to be like God. I can take life. Lamech wants to be like God. I can make up my own rules about marriage. The sons of God and daughters of men, they're trying to create some sort of divine race and that sort of thing. So I think what this reflects is that even after the flood, humans are still trying to be like God. And they're building this city and attempting, I think, to establish a rival kingdom against God. And in chapter 11, verse 3, they say, we will make a name for ourselves. And then this tower, signifying, they're exalting their own gods and their own religion.
So the tower itself, it's not so much about the architecture. It's really a religious sort of building, right? It's intended to manipulate the false gods that they were trying to swing in their favor. Is that correct?
Yeah, it seems like this represents a fairly common religious structure in Mesopotamia, the ziggurat, which was it looks a little bit like a pyramid, but it was adjacent to a temple, and it was viewed as basically a meeting place between heaven and earth. And there was even a little bed and breakfast for the god to come down and meet with them, and they thought, as they provided for the gods and met their needs and manipulated them into doing what they wanted, that was a way that they would secure the blessing of deity and the supernatural power. They're going outside of God and I think really creating gods in their own image rather than serving the Lord who had created them in his image.
Right. And, one of the things that I think maybe makes Baptists a little uncomfortable sometimes is this recognition that there are supernatural forces afoot that are not of God, and that there are demonic structures and things like that. And so when we talk about false gods and giving our worship, or in the case of Babel, that you've got a civilization even that has decided that they're trying to manipulate and to bring praise even to these other deities. Are there deities there? Is there something to this?
Yeah, I think that these are not just mythological gods that people sat around the fire and created, but they represent genuine spiritual power, demonic forces. And obviously, we're not talking about polytheism.
Right.
Because the Lord is in a category all his own. He's the only eternal, sovereign, self-existent creator God. But these gods represent spiritual powers that have rebelled against God. And so now what you have really kind of the joining of forces between human rebels and these supernatural rebels against God as well.
Right. It seems like the Old Testament paints a picture of sin, that sort of runs in the face of maybe some common misnomers, that sin is just a matter of breaking the law and not doing what you were told. But there's this picture that, in fact, it has this air of rebellion and a desire to just kind of throw a middle finger up to God.
Yeah, we can create our own system, our own gods. We don't have to follow the moral dictates of the true God, and still get the blessing and the benefit and the supernatural power that goes along with that. I think what's interesting is they built these ziggurats as a way of trying to get the gods to come down and bless them. But chapter 11, verse 5 in Genesis says that the Lord came down in response to what they had done, and he's not coming to bless, and he's an unexpected guest showing up to bring judgment because of this rebellion that's taken place.
Well, and part of this too is we're not talking about an isolated event. This is representative of humanity in a sense, right? This is collective civilizational level rebellion against the God who made them,
right,
in favor of these other false gods.
Yeah, and we've had that rebellion before the flood. God wipes everything clean, starts over. We have kind of a new creation, but really the problem of human sin and rebellion continues, and the Lord deals with this. I think one last thing that just to talk about a little bit is that the Lord deals with this in a very significant way. If we turn over to Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 and 9, and there's a couple of different readings of this passage, but one of the readings says that God chose Israel as his inheritance, and they were his special people. But it says he divided the nations according to the number of the sons of God, these powerful spiritual beings. And so what it seems like is happening is that these people say, hey, we want to follow our own gods and give our loyalty and devotion to them. And God basically punishes sin with sin, gives them over to these gods who will now control them and have power over them. Instead of them manipulating these gods will manipulate them, and they will continue to promote human rebellion, sinfulness, wickedness, injustice, that will ultimately bring even greater judgment from God.
And this becomes the basis for spiritual warfare that we see even in the New Testament.
Yeah, and Babel kind of becomes headquarters,
right,
of opposition against God and God's kingdom. It's there in Genesis. Babylon is the one that destroys Jerusalem and the temple later in the Old Testament. And guess who shows up in the book of Revelation as the final? It's Babylon the Great.
That's right.
So this is something that's going to, this is an ongoing battle. This supernatural battle is something that will continue through the rest of Scripture.
Wow.
So that's good. So our architects, our engineers, they don't have to worry about hitting a certain floor before everything comes crashing down?
Probably not.
Okay. Guys, thank you for joining us back on The Dive. If there's a thumbs up button down there, go ahead and press it, subscribe, do all those things. And if you have a question, find us on Twitter, and it's at LW Press, and give us a question, and we'll have one of these guys answered in a future episode. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.